our group's question assignment was, some psychologists are concerned with the ways in which stress affects people and how mental processes may affect health. Prepare an overview of the study of stress and how psychology is used to improve and promote health. Do you think there is an obligation on the part of Christians to have a healthy body and healthy mind? What do the scriptures tell us about our bodies being the temples of the Holy Spirit? So my part was on the mental and physical process that stress does to the body. So in order to find out how stress affects the body, we should first define stress itself. So stress, as defined by psychologists, is the demand that is made on an organism to adapt. So that's simple enough, right? Or is it? Stress can be a natural process to make us stronger and grow, to kind of build us up and make us tougher. But the effects of unhealthy stress we cause ourselves can be damaging to our mental health and our physical health. So stress also, as related to Webster's dictionary, is a factor that includes bodily or mental tension, a state induced by such a stress. So like, just like the stress of work and the stresses that we have, it can be either healthy or unhealthy. So Hans Zellige was the first to give scientific explanation for biologic stress, as he termed it as helpful stress or eustress. I said it right. Eustress. It's a helpful stress. So like choosing your nail color or what book you're gonna read, what movie you're gonna see. Sometimes it can be just that little bit of stress, like you can't make a decision. So that was what he thought was a term of helpful stress. So some negative stresses that we could have in our life can affect our mood. Like stressing over school, like for me, for instance, if I've got a lot of homework to do and my kids just aren't acting right for me, and then the dishes are piling up and there's laundry to do and I have to work at 5:30 in the morning and it's already 10 o'clock at night, and then they're coming up to me and yelling at me and I'm like, just leave me alone. So that can cause my mood to be affected because I'm letting all the stress get to me instead of, kind of taking one thing at a time. So making a healthy stress into a negative stress. So also another negative stress is overtaking our ability to adjust. Making us that stronger, more learning lessons that way. Also another negative stress would be impairing the ability to experience pleasure. We get so caught up in like the negatives of the world or the negative things that are happening in our life that we forget to, let go and just kind of relax and not let the stress build up on us to be able to enjoy the things in life. So like for me, for instance, enjoying my kids while they're young instead of like wanting them to hurry up and grow up, So inevitability of harming our body, so like physical, mental health, like we'll discuss later. So health problems, can be caused from stress. Later turning to substance abuse to pacify the feelings of stress. Some people turn to drugs, alcohol, pills, anything. Like sometimes people will just leave and go away for a while. Some people have, like my father, been in our family for a few years at a time because that was his way of dealing with stress. So, and it can just do negative effects to everybody. And then the last one would be overworked, unhealthy work environment, which I know we can all attest from that. So, such things as, work, no play, no enjoyment, tense, bad attitudes, miserable, you hate your job, or you have to deal with people that hate their job, which makes your job harder because you have to overcompensate for what they're not doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then tense, so work piling up, time crunches, time commitments can be a big stress causer. So some examples of bad stress would be, of course, money, work, economy, relationships, family relationships, our family responsibilities, our duties in our families, health problems of family members, personal health, job stability, housing costs, and personal safety. So those are all just like examples of bad stress that we cause ourselves. Some mental reactions that we have, our body has due to stress would be our self-efficiency expectation, the belief that we can bring about desired changes through our own efforts, and then psychological hardness, which I'm sure some of us here do that, which is where we'll work out to be able to have the ability to withstand stress, to be able to have that, we're actually able to resist illness too because you working out creates that immunity to where your body isn't going down from all the stress, you're not letting your body get attacked. They also have that ability to overcome a lot quicker more than other people that wouldn't work out, be able to get that aggression out that sometimes being caused by stress. So, and then also would be a sense of humor, which is my way of dealing with stress. I tend to like to lighten the mood or make jokes, or if things like if I'm stressed out and my daughter isn't listening to me and I could tell her to knock it off and she doesn't listen, I go towards her, she'll run off screaming and laughing. So I kind of start laughing because it's just easier to laugh and let it go than to get all mad and because they don't want to listen. So, and then another one would be predictability and control. So one of the predictabilities would be your internal control over like what you do internally, how you affect your stress. So what you can change inside of you, like how you feel, like what you put into your body to be able to help fight your illnesses if you do get overwhelmed by stress. And then your externals, like your control over situations outside your body, like your work environment, your home environment, stuff like that. That's your externals for predictability and control. So I know one external that I had and internal was my Nana in February passed away from cancer, and I was on her deathbed and watched her die. I was the only one there, so that caused a lot of stress because I had stress at work and then family, and so that being able to control my inside and then control the outside of taking some time off for that. So stress can affect a lot of different things. And then the last one of our mental reactions to stress would be our social support. So emotional concern from others, getting guidance, appraisal, and praise, as well as socializing. So comfort from someone else who's been in your same situation or knows how you're feeling to be able to get that stress relief and kind of come down from the bad stress. So I wanted to say one verse that some of us we can kind of use sometimes. When we have those bad times, it's nice to have a reminder of what God would say to us in those kind of stressful situations. And it's from John 14:27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives you, do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. So and then that goes along with mental reactions to stress. My reaction would be to sometimes just turn to the Bible for verses of how God would want me to react during those situations, because as Jesus sometimes got overwhelmed with all the troubles of the world, he would go off into the mountains and just pray to Jesus or to God because he couldn't handle all the stress that we were feeling, like he felt what we felt. So knowing that Jesus even felt that kind of brings some relief to us about our stresses in life. So as we move on to the mental reactions of stress, we're going into the 3 stages that the body has to the natural reactions of stress of alarm, resistance, and exhaustion. And here is Laurie to finish up on that.
Hello. Who's stressed? There's actually 3 stages of stress. The first stage, she's actually passing that around, and I have one that's a little bit more detailed. The first stage is alarm, which generally happens when something happens. It's like when you first hear about it, it's news, it's just sudden, generally speaking it is. Alarm is basically when your body freezes or reacts. It's what we were speaking about earlier, is the fight or flight reaction that you have. It's our sympathetic system activating hormones like we were discussing earlier as well, the cortisol and the adrenaline. It's getting the body prepared and getting braced for something. I mean, you guys have seen movies or may have not have seen movies, but if something happens or if you have a car that's headed towards you, usually brace yourself. That's pretty much what the alarm is. You also have the second stage is resistance. Okay, that is when your body is still on red alert. It's still watching out for everything, all your surroundings. Your blood glucose levels, your heart rate, your blood pressure, all of that is still elevated at this point. And your cortisol and adrenaline are circulating still at a high speed. But outwardly, you would look normal. You would look fine, like nothing's bothering you. So it's kind of like if anyone has kids, you take them out to the mall or something like that. That's probably on the resistance stage where you're outside. It's okay, honey. It's okay. You're basically exactly. You're watching out. You're elevated inside, but outside you're still kind of looking normal. And then exhaustion. That's the final stage, and that's pretty much after everything's kind of run its course, things wear you out. Don't we all know it? You go to work by Friday, you're done. That's pretty much the exhaustion stage. And your body needs that time. Like we were talking about, God giving us the day of rest. You need that day of rest. Because if your body gets exhausted, that's when it starts to break down, and that's when you start having more health issues. And to go ahead and put this into perspective with a personal story, like we all like to tell personal stories about ourselves. So I'll go ahead and mention one where this definitely hit in with me. And since I have an audience of mostly gentlemen here, you guys might appreciate it. But my husband and I, one night, we were just out and around, and let's go ahead and stop by this car lot. Okay, great. Why not? We're just having fun. I'll get you ice cream afterwards. Yay, I'm there. So we go to this car lot, and then, of course, the salesman comes out, and what would you like to see? And my husband, who's already scoped out the driveway or the parking lot numerous times, I don't want to see that Camaro. Okay. I'm wondering now if the ice cream is good. So anyways, so we go in the Camaro, and he takes it for a test drive, and he's extremely excited. And this is my alarm stage. I'm like, okay, we're just driving it. He talks about trading in one of our vehicles. I'm freaking out. The alarm is going off right about now. And when he was trying to find different things, trying to basically bounce things off and try to find the logic in this, by that point I was kind of hitting the resistance stage because I'm trying to put up that wonderful supportive wifely position of supporting my husband. One in the back I'm saying, no. Sorry, I'm on camera, so I can't really say other words that I was saying at that time, but still, you guys pretty get the idea of that. So pretty much at that point I was still elevated, wanted to be supportive, wanted to do this, but I'm like bracing myself. Took me out on the test drive. Yay. Didn't really excite me a whole lot because I was still in that mode. And then by the end of the night, when after they tried to calm me down, and I was like, I'm fine, whatnot. And then I came to my senses of what was really bothering me, and that's pretty much when I hit the exhaustion stage. Is I finally let it go and I said, you know what? Let's get the Camaro, but we're not trading in the car. But we can get the Camaro. So it's like at that point there, calm down, I'm done, my cycle had finished. So that kind of put a little bit of perspective in. It's like you get yourself all worked up and offered medication to help calm you down. Think of one of those wives. So. The other type of stress is more positive and can actually create more beneficial things to your health as well, and that is eustress. And I like to remember the word because it's how I would like to stress. It's how I would like you to stress. Get it? The eustress is the positive stress that keeps us vital and excited about our lives. It's as Elizabeth Scott said, that it keeps people from getting depressed and it keeps them from lacking meaning in their life. It's what helps people to strive for their goals, to overcome their challenges, and to trigger a reason to get up. In a previous presentation, I was mentioning the alarm thing. Well, when you have this eustress, then you have a reason to go shut off that alarm and get up. It also goes through the same cycle. It goes through the alarm resistance and exhaustion, but it has different effects on that. It's not as taxing on one system in mind, but it can also improve your heart. It can improve the functions, and it also make the body more resistant to infections as well. Some of the ideas of what is eustress, what is a positive stress. I cannot imagine stress as being positive. Well, it actually can be. Physical exercise, as she was mentioning earlier. Physical exercise is a positive stress. I mean, you're stressing your body out, you're working your muscles, you're breaking the sweat, you're doing it. You're putting pressure and tension on yourself. That's a stress. But the outcome of that stress is positive. Mental challenges, you're trying to figure out that doggone puzzle that's been sitting there in front of you for the past 3 months. That's a positive stress because yes, it's stressful trying to figure out which part of the leaf goes on that corner, or that little empty hole, but still it actually activates your mind and it gets your mind exercising, and so it's able to help for problem solving later on down the line. Helping others, that is another stress that is also good for you. Negative stress, it promotes anxiety or concern, it feels unpleasant, and it also decreases performance. Whereas positive stress motivates focus and energy, it feels exciting, and it also improves performance. The positive stress is more of like the sudden buzz, that it's just the sudden burst of your hormones that helps you to perform the tasks better and improves your memory on that. So, for example, one thing that I like to do is I love to entertain. I love to have parties. I love to decorate. I love to be the hostess. But when I'm doing that, there's a lot of work involved. A lot of work. And sometimes I find myself working a lot more, and people are like, Laurie, can I help you? I mean, I've got all these dishes, I got all this stuff, I got all this. And everyone's wanting to help me, trying to take the stress off of me. But the funny thing is that is what's releasing my stress, is by doing all that, because I know the greater good is because I'm doing something for others. And so the stress that I'm putting on myself is actually a good stress. So before I do go ahead and present Mr. Wing over here on my left wing, at least I didn't say anything else. I'm just kidding. He's going to be talking about the Christian perspective on obtaining healthy body and mind. But I do have another handout. But for this handout, I do need a volunteer. Can I have someone volunteer? Perfect, because I was going to pick you if no one volunteered. I'm going to pass this handout out, and I want you to go ahead and read it to the class. You can go ahead and read this to the class. Thank you for being a part of our show.
Stress reduction kit. Bang head here. Directions. Place kit on firm surface. Follow directions in circle of kit. Repeat step 2 as necessary or until unconscious. If unconscious, see stress reduction activity.
Jacob.
Thank you, Laurie. Just a second. So, we've been kind of talking about stress. Kalyn, she kind of talked about, her own personal experiences a little bit with stress. Kind of told us about, negative and positive stress. And then Laurie, obviously, she was very enthusiastic about all of us being stressed. So, but once again, my name is Jacob Wing, and I'm going to talk about the Christian perspective of obtaining a healthy body and mind. Now, there's two different types of points of view when it kind of comes to the Christian perspective. There's an Orthodox view, which is kind of more of a Catholic, Eastern type Orthodox kind of view. What I kind of like to call the old viewpoint of Christianity. That kind of says, and this kind of, in a sense, from an article, Father Paul O. Callahan, he said that the Christian view of the body and health is that the body is important, but there are other things that are more important. And basically, he kind of got that point of view, kind of comes from Matthew 10 and 28, which says, don't worry about the death of the body. There are other things more important than the body. Worry about the death of the soul. So, a lot of this comes from every day we're bombarded with TV and media and advertising, and, radio commercials, and internet pop-ups of health when it's related to the mind and also when it's related to the body. More similarly, if we look from the body perspective, we see a lot of sexual or sensual type of influences. And basically what they're stating is that let's not worry so much about that type of stuff. because that's more of a worldly type of viewpoint, or a heathen, a more Christian type word kind of viewpoint. And let's worry more about where is our souls going. We want to make sure that it goes to heaven, because we don't want to perish in hell. And so that's kind of where this teaching, the fundamental teaching, came from. Now, but the problem with this teaching is it doesn't focus so much on like a science or a psychology point of view when it comes to our minds and bodies. Now, more of a Protestant or evangelical Christian type of view would be that man is made up of a three-part type being, right? What is that three-part type being? Okay, so Brother Kenneth Hagin, he kind of was one of the founders of this type of theology, that I am a spirit, I have a soul, and I live in a body. And so it was very easy for me to, when I read some of his books, to remember that I am a spirit, I have a soul, and I live in a body. Now, the body, which is our physical being, is kind of made up of our nervous systems or organs, you know, all that type of stuff. What you see here in front of you today. Our soul is kind of made up of our mind. In some sects of Protestant sects, they kind of call the soul the mind. Those type of terms are kind of conjunction together. And that's kind of where our personality comes from. It's our conscious and subconscious. It's our how we make our decisions, our choices, our will. And then our spirit is kind of where we get meaning, where we get purpose, what the point is of our life. It's how we love. It's how we connect to God, because we are a spirit being, God is a spirit being, and that's how we have a relationship with God. Now, since man is a three-part type being, though, what I want you to understand is that the body and the soul and the spirit, they're not three. I mean, they are in a sense kind of different, but they're not separate. They're conjuncted. They're together. So in other words, if something happens to one of those pieces, something happens to your soul, personality, you get depressed, then eventually it's going to affect the other parts. Now, stress, it not only affects the mind, but it also can affect the immune system. So it kind of makes you more vulnerable to like an illness. It makes you vulnerable to getting cancer or heart disease or whatever type of illness that there is, that it really makes it, if you're under a lot of stress or pressure, makes you more vulnerable. I was sharing with my brother here earlier about when I used to work in a factory and how I was having a lot of stress on my body and moving refrigerators from one car to another all over the place, how that was putting stress on my body, and it created, I had some back problems because of that. That's a viewpoint, of having a negative stress. However, to avoid medical problems like cancer or heart disease, there's a few things as Christians that we can do that's very important so that we can develop each and every part of our tripart being. So mind, body, or soul, spirit, soul, body. The first thing is meditation. So meditating on God's word, worship, prayer, those types of things can help us develop as Christians our mind, our soul, our spirit. One of the things is that what was very interesting to me, and this is kind of outside of a Christian perspective, but even within different religions, I used to go to school at St. Gregory's, and I took a class called Faith in the Modern World, and we actually went to the Buddhist temple down there, and we visited these Buddhists, right? And they were giving us a different perspective on how the world kind of operates. And when I met those guys, man, they were so peaceful. They did work around the yard, took care of things. These monks, they were so peaceful because they spent a lot of time in meditation. And you would think that they don't have the stress in the world, right? Because, obviously, when you have that type of lifestyle and you've developed that, they eat right and they're in great shape, they're constantly meditating, and but it's not like they don't work or don't do anything, because they obviously have a service to that particular temple. and each of them have some different type of service. So it was very interesting to me to go and see somebody from a different perspective that has so much peace in their lives. The other thing that we can do is we want to make sure that we exercise. We want to make sure that we're eating right. We want to make sure that we're doing what is necessary to make sure that our physical body, is basically releasing whatever stresses that we're dealing with. So God is, one of the great things about God is that He's giving us the ability to deal with obstacles or situations and circumstances that we have in life, these stresses. He's given, whether it's negative or positive, He's giving us the grace to be able to deal with those types of situations. And the other thing about Christianity is, even now, and especially in Tulsa, which is why Tulsa is so great, is that even many Christian churches, colleges, and universities, they promote having a healthy body and having a healthy mind. For example, Oral Roberts University, their motto is educate the whole body, mind, body, spirit, soul, body, spirit. 1 Corinthians 6:19 and 20 says that Christians must realize that our bodies is the temple of the Holy Spirit and that we are not our own. So we must honor God with our body. So we are God's temple. And this, we're not our own, but we have to honor God with our body. And as Christians, we're obligated to take care of our body. And our obligation is to have a healthy mind, and our obligation is to have a healthy body. And I'm gonna, in conclusion, I'm gonna end with this. No matter whatever stress that you're going through, whether it's a positive stress, and hopefully it is a positive stress, but a lot of us, when we think of stress, we think of the negative stress that we deal with. Some of the things that my team had mentioned, and whether it's stress, maybe you do physical labor at work, or maybe it's stress where you're constantly having to solve problems at work, or maybe it's relational stress, or some type of emotional stress, or maybe you're going through something. It could be an addiction, or you do have a disease that's adding stress to your life, or maybe your family member has some kind of disease, or whatever the situation is that you're going through. Each and every one of us have a stress. But we must strive to continue our education so we can become a well-rounded individual that has the ability to reach out into people's worldview and share God's love. Any questions? You can pass those out. I have a visual on the mind, body, soul, and spirit. It kind of deals with some of that, which the areas that they relate to.